Okay, yesterday we had a very interesting machlokes. We know that one of the Tanai Kesuvos is that you support the girls from the estate. So the shaila was whether they get from metaltlin only karka. Since the Tanai Kesuba, we make a hekesh between the Kesubas bonim dichrin, which they only get from karka. We'll get into Kesubas bonim dichrin B'ez Hashem in a few blocks. So too the Tanai Kesuba of the girls is only from karka. We had a machlokas amaroyim, and today we're going to go ahead and take that to the next level, where it's machlokas tanoim, whether you can go ahead and take from support from metaltalin, not just karka, but metaltalin, the girls. So we're going to begin on Nun Aleph Amid Aleph. We're beginning Nun Aleph Amid Aleph. We're about 7-8 lines down, Tana Rabbanan. Tana Rabbanan, 8 lines down, Nun Aleph Amid Aleph. Echad nechosim sheyesh lamachrayis, that is karka. That's the fancy term for karka. The echad nechosim she'en lamachrayis, and property that there is no achrayis, there's no responsibility to make up, which is metaltalin. Motziin lemazon isha, you can go ahead and support the wife. Ulabanos. So clearly, Divrei Rabbi. Rabbi's of the opinion that metaltalin nechosim she'en lamachrayis could be used for what? For mezainis for the girls. So Rabbi, again, clearly, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar in there, nechasim sheish machrayis, meaning karka, motziin lebanos min habanim. If the girl, who inherits the estate? Who inherits the estate? The sons. So banim inherit, but we take from the karka that was inherited by the sons for the mazon of the banos. Ulebanos min habanos, and if there are no sons and only daughters, and the older daughters go ahead and take the property, the karka, then will be mitzi from them for the younger girls for support. Ulebanim ben abanim. And if all the sons inherit and the older boys take a larger portion, we'll go ahead and equal it out. Ulebanim ben abanos. And if the girls take it, right? That's the girls take the portion, then of course we're going to take it away and give it to the sons, mitoras Yerusha. That's by benechasim merubim. That's when you have a lot of property. When you have a lot of property, we're not going to tell the girls to go ahead and take from the property. Since there's enough to go around, the boys get and the girls get. If there's small property, then even though the boys inherit, we'll have the girls be supported from the estate and the boys go door to door. It's a bigger zilusa, it's a bigger embarrassment from girls going door to door. So if the property is not enough to support both the sons and the daughters, then the sons go door to door and the girls will be supported. So we'll take away, by karka, we'll take away from the sons for the daughters. Now, what do we need? The following. Nechosim she'en lemachrayis, if it's metaltalin, it's nechosim she'en lemachrayis, metaltalin, motziim lebanim min abanim. Then, since the older sons and the younger sons are equal in the Yerusha, we will go ahead and divvy it up. Ulabanim ben abanos, so too, if there's no sons, the girls will divvy it up. And here's what we need. Ulabanim ben abanos, and we'll take away from the girls for the sons, because, right? Avoloi lebanis min abanim. We won't take away from the sons the property, the metaltalin to support the girls. We won't go ahead and take away the property from the boys to support the girls. So obviously, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is of the opinion that you do not go ahead and give for the mazon of the girls from metaltalin. Machloikis Rabbi and Shimon ben Elazar. So yesterday's daf, that's a machloikis amaroyim, is in fact what? A machloikis tanoyim. Whether the support of mizonis, the Tanai Kesuba, is from karka, similar to Ban and Dichrin, or no, even extends to what? To metaltalin. Rabbi says yes. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says no. And afagav the kaimlan alacha karebi mechabe roi in the klali ashas, in the klali apsak, machloikas Rebbe and his chaver, meaning one individual. The halacha is like Rebbe, hacha alacha Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Over here, the halacha will be in conjunction with Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The Amar Rava, because Rava is of the opinion, hilchasa mimekarke v'lo mimetaltli, only from karka and not metaltalin. Bein l'ksuba, whether it's for the ikr ksuba, Bein lemizoni, what we need, whether it's to support the girls or the mother. Bein leparnasa, it's the nedunya of yisoima, right? And we spoke out that if the father dies, the sons have to write a dowry for the girls, and we estimate what would the father give. All of these are only from karka and not from metalpi. Now it's interesting to note. Just mamish, go to the left to Tosfos. Go to the left, and you see where it says Mishnah. Go down 2 lines. Is venira. Bizman hazeh. The kulu govim mitatli, kasuba or mizaynes mitakanas hagoinim. You're going to collect from metatli. In other words, even though the Gemara paskins like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, that only from karka, says Tosfos bizman hazeh, you're going to get a field from metatli. Why is that? Because we know bizman hazeh. We don't view karka any different than metatli. If the estate is there to be divvied up, we view it one as the same. In the old days, there was the concept of mishubadim. There's a lien on the property, b'nei chayrin, free lands. Well, that's true. But we're talking about metaltalin, where again, karka, it was king. Karka was king, and there was a difference in karka and metaltalin. Even in the time in the Middle Ages of the Bali Tosfos in the early 11th, 12th, 13th century, even by then they collected from metaltalin. So certainly bisman hazeh, it will be the same. So it's funny, Tosfos overrides. Which again, this is a monetary matter. Hefka bes nefka. We can go ahead. We have the capacity to go ahead and make sure the girls are supported, even from metaltal. Okay, so now we know there's an ikka ksuba, which is 200 for a basula and 100 watt for a bas yisrael, for an almana, So what happens if you don't write a ksuba? Madam, you don't. Is it understood that there is a ksuba, it's just unwritten? Or there's no ksuba at all? Do we say the woman's meichel on it? Says the Mishnah, like kosav la ksuba, even if you don't write a ksuba, besula goy from masayim, a besula will collect 200, the almana mana, and an almana will collect 100. Why? Mifneshu tanai bezdin. It's a tanai bezdin. In other words, you can't get married without a ksuba, and if you don't write a ksuba, it's a mistake. There has to be a ksuba. You can't live without a ksuba. That's the first end of the Mishnah. Second end of the Mishnah, kosav lasada shavamana tachas masayim zuz. So listen, I have the ksuba. I owe you 200 zuz. In lieu of that, I'm giving you a field, but the field is going to be a lien on that field, but the field is only worth 100. And you don't write all my property is indentured to go ahead and pay off your ksuba. In other words, I'm telling you the following: you're entitled to 200. I'm giving you a property worth 100, and you do not write, as the lashon of the ksuba was, that is any nechasim, the isli achroy and the ksuba sayich. All my property is achroy, is responsible for your ksuba. Chayiv. He's still chayiv to go ahead and pay the whole ksuba. Why? Shu tanai bezdin, because this is a tanai bezdin. So two dinim at the tanai bezdin. One, no ksuba. Two, if you're going to go ahead and be cheap and say all my nechasim are not there to pay the ksuba, either way you lose. The ksuba is intact, and you're achrayt to pay the whole ksuba. Third din, like kosav law im tishdavoy, if you are captured, efrekinich voice vinach lila into. If you're captured, I will redeem you, and you will return to me as my wife. If you're captured, I'll redeem you and return to his wife. Okay. Ubakehenes. Now, okay, henes, again, we're subject, we know by now that if you don't know this by now, it's not good. A kohenes, if she's raped, is usher to her husband. So we assume that if she was captured, even though we didn't see anything, we assume that she was violated. So therefore, he can't say, I'll redeem you and bring you back to me as my wife. Nonetheless, you get redeemed, and hadrinuch lemedinach, and I'll go ahead and bring you back to your land, because he can't bring you back as a wife. Now, chayiv, he's chayiv to do it, even though he writes not. He's chayiv to do it. Shoot tanai bezdin. It's another tanai bezdin. A man has to go ahead and redeem his wife. Guys, we had earlier Gemara and Mishum Peiris. Since he eats the Peiris of a nichsei miloig. In lieu of the Peiris, he has to go ahead and redeem his wife. So there's no ifs, ands, and buts. It's tanai bezdin. You can't go ahead and write away. Just like you can't get rid of the ksuba. Just like you can't go ahead and say that my nechasim will not be achrayt ksuba. You can't say that that I will not be achroi to go ahead and be paid to you. How about this then? Nishbase, chayef of daisa. If she gets captured, you have to be paid to her. Then Omar, he says, harigita, this is your get. Uksubasa, and this is your ksuba. The tiftes atzma, and go ahead and be paid to yourself. Ain't a rishoy. You can't do it. You can't say, listen, you're in captivity, you need money, I'll divorce you, you'll have money now. When you use your own money, you can't do that. He has to use his own money. Laksa, however, if she gets sick, chayiv l'faisa, he's chayiv to pay the doctor bills, because that's part of a mezainis. Mezainis is to support her. No difference whether it's materialistically or whether it's what paying the medical bills. Ama harekita ksuvasa tipes atzma rishoy. However, if he says what? If he says this is your get, and go ahead, you have money now and pay the doctor bills, then you have rishus. So it's interesting. What's the difference between where he says this is your get, redeem yourself, versus this is your get, pay the doctor bills? Good, very interesting. So let's jump ahead because I may forget to do it and I remember it now. Nun beis amid beis, there's a Tosfos. Turn to Nun beis amid beis. The second Tosfos on the page. That first Tosfos is a nice Tosfos, right? Guys, say Aresh Shukar, you can make a landing on Tosfos. Now, says the second Tosfos. Omar, Haregita uksubasa terapa atzmi rishoy. If you look on the side, it says Shayach le'el nun aleph, it's the Mishnah. That this Tosfos is Shayach to the Mishnah. Lefi sherafua hi b'chal mezainis. Curing the bills is in category mezainis. Vari kibla keneged ma'asiyadeha shad achshav. In other words, she's working. She goes ahead and she's paying him off. So it's been tit for tat. In other words, whatever rights that she had in the mezainis, she got paid for. She gave the money, he gave him mezainis. So in other words, she can't taina, I gave insurance. Where is my insurance? Whatever you gave, you got. In other words, I'm required the mezainis. Why? Because you gave me your money. So until you were captured, right? Until you were sick, I paid you. Now you're sick. Here's your own money. Gegus and the height. However, aval ein rishoy loymar to kabel eskita betiftes atzma. Take the get and redeem yourself. Guys, why do you have to redeem your wife if she's captured? Because of the payris you'll be eating till now. So let's say you could be eating payris 10 years and she wasn't captured yet. So in other words, the tashlum, the payment for the what? For the payris hasn't come to light. It's an insurance policy. If I get captured, you're going to go ahead what? And have to redeem me. So now that you finally have to redeem her, you can't say, Gegus into hide, here's your money. By getting better, by refuah, where you received what you gave me your Maisiyadeha, I paid you back, I supported you. So it's been payment as we go along. Masha'en came by Paris, I haven't paid you anything, because Paris is to go ahead and redeem you. But you weren't captured for 10 years. Now you're captured, I can't go ahead and say redeem yourself. A beautiful chilik and taisis between the mezainis, where you've gotten what you gave. She gave you money, you gave mezainis. She got what she gave, versus being captive where she didn't get what she gave. She gave Paris all these years and got nothing. So therefore now he can't go ahead and say absolve himself from this chiyuv. Beautiful taisis to explain the chilik between the zionist that he can tell her, go cure yourself, here's your money, versus here's your money and go be paid yourself. Okay, back by us. There's two first din of the Mishnah. The first din of the Mishnah is if you don't write a ksuba, right? It's like you have a ksuba. You can't live without a ksuba. Second din of the Mishnah is what? Is that you write a sada that's worth 100, 200, and you say, all my nechasim is not achroi to pay you up. Nonetheless, you have to pay up. We're going to see a stira in this between Reb Yehuda and Reb Meir. Now, Reb Yehuda and Reb Meir are Mishnah a little later on. It's the first Mishnah in Afal Pi. Take a look at Nun Dal and Amid Beis. Nun Dal and Amid Beis. Okay, in the middle of the Mishnah, it says Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, in Ratza, Kaisev Lebesula, Shtar Shal Masayim, he could write a shtar of 200. Vihi Kaiseves, and she can write a receipt, Hiskabalti Mimcha Mana. I received 100. So in other words, she's saying she's being Michael $100, 100 mana. Ulal mana, Vihi Kaiseves Kabalti Mimcha Chamishim Zuz, 150. Remei Omer, Kala Poiches Lebesula Mimasayim. Anyone who gives less than 200 to a psula, ulal mana, and anyone who gives less to a mana, harizu bilis nus. Right? It has to be, it's a bilis nus. In other words, there's no way of getting out of psula. So not back by us. With that machlokes in mind, let's see what we got. Says the Gemara, money. Who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Again, what was the first thing in the Mishnah? The first thing was that if you don't write a ksuba, you can collect 200. Money, Reb Meir. The Amar, Kala Poiches Lebesula Mimasayim Ulamara Mimana, Harizo Bilis Nus. The Reb Yehuda, Ha'ama, writes the Kaisev Lebesula Shtar Shal Masayim, Vikaisevis is Kabaltim Emcha Mana, Ulamana Mana, Vikaisevis Kabaltim Emcha Chamishim Zuz. In other words, clearly the ratio of our Mishnah, the diak is, if you don't write it, and we say you don't have a choice, it must be like Reb Meir, who says you can't live without a ksuba. Versus the Rabbi Yehuda says you can go ahead and finagle the ksuba l'nimaminis, because our Mishnah clearly says you need 200 and 100, right? So therefore, obviously, it must be from the diak of the Mishnah. The ratio is Reb Meir. What about the next case? Okay, covers the next case. Here's a soda that's worth 100, but the rest of my nechasim are not achroi for your ksuba. So ema seifa kasav la soda shava mana pachas b'sayim zuz, v'le kasav la kol nechasim. And you don't write, all my nechasim are there to go ahead and pay off your ksuba. Chayiv, you be chayiv. Why? Shu tonight besdin. Now, also Rabbi Yehuda, this would be according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Achrayas Toyas Seifahu. Okay, outside. Anytime a person goes ahead and buys something, usually you want some type of insurance. I buy a house, right? I don't want someone coming along and saying it's my house. I don't want someone coming and saying it's my house. So we have what's called the title search, right? We want to ensure that the house was not by anybody else. We have what's called the title search. You buy a field. You want to know the field is not to anybody else, okay? What happens? What's achroi? What's achroi? What's the responsibility when you buy a field from someone? Listen, if this field turns out not to be, if the field has a lien on it, you're going to make it up. I'm not buying this field and paying good money for a field unless I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that if the field is taken away from me, I can get it back. It makes a lot of sense. I want insurance. What happens if you don't write that insurance in the shtar? In the document, you fail to write it. Is it you're being Michael and saying, you know what, I'm buying it outright, whatever happens, happens? Or no, it's an oversight. It's an oversight because no person in his right mind is going to extend himself this way without insurance. Says Rabbi Yehuda, no person is going to extend himself without insurance. And if he fails to write it, it's a mistake. Achrayas, making up this field, toy cipher. If you don't have it, it's a mistake. If you don't have it, it's a mistake. Rabbi Meir says no. Says Rabbi Meir that if a person does that, he's accepting the risk. He's accepting the risk that maybe what? Maybe the field is indentured to somebody else. Maybe there's a lien on it. So if you took a chance, you took a chance. So whether achrayas is toysef or not is machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's a mistake. It's a mistake. And Rabbi Meir says it's not a mistake. Now, what did the Mishnah say? Our Mishnah said that you wrote in the Ksuba, there's 200, but I'm only giving you a field of 100, but the rest of my nechasim are not there to go ahead and make it up. Okay? So obviously that what? It must be, and we say it's not a good deal. Why? Because the person will view it as if what? As if they are there. It's like a mistake. They are there to make it up. Says the Gemara. Seifo kosav lasada shava mana tachas b'sayim zuz, v'le kosav kol nechasim de'isle achroyin l'ksuv b'sayich, chayev, shu t'nai bezdin, asan Rabbi Yehuda, the ama achrayis toy seifahu. The Reb Meir ama achrayis like toy seifahu. right? Rabbi is of the opinion that it's not a toy sefer. That nan matzah shtori chayiv. If you find the star that someone owes somebody, amibes im yesh leachrayis nechasim. If in the star chayiv there is, and if I don't pay you back, you can collect from this such and such property. Lo yachser. You don't go ahead and return it. Shebezdin nefroim mehen. Ain't okay. What's this going? Okay, outside. Another idea, guys. Outside. I go ahead and I have a chayiv. I say I owe Benji $1,000. And what's the collateral for the loan? There's a field in Kanasi. Field in Kanasi that says it's going to make the loan. Okay. We find the shtar chayiv that owes the money, and in the shtar it says you can collect something. If we give it back to Benji will recollect. Even fellas, if I say the loan, right, I still own the money, we won't return it to Benji. We're worried about subterfusion over here. Really, I paid off Benji the loan, and everything is good. Benji's going to go ahead now and rip away the field of Kanasi from the guy who bought the field, and we'll split the difference. That's called a kanunya. That's called collusion. We'll make a deal. So the shtar that has written achrayas, you'll never return it to the lender, even if the borrower says that it's paid up. I didn't pay up. You're not going to return it because the Gemara in Bava Metzia says you're suspicious of kinunya, that you may go ahead and make some claim a subterfuge. Okay, so that's the lashon over here. Lo yachser, you won't turn it back. Top line, shebezdin nefroim mehen. Ein behem achrayas nechasim. If there's no field in Kanasi, if there's nothing to be made up, then yachser, you'll go ahead and return it. She'ein bezdin nefroim mehen, because bezdin will right. In other words, there was nothing to secure Benji's loan. Right, there was nothing to secure the loan. Give it back when there's nothing to worry about. The Chachamim, no. And the Chachamim, Rashi points out, the Chachamim is including Rabbi Yehuda, who was alive at the time. Rashi points out over here, Rabbi Yehuda was alive at the time. The Chachamim, echad zeh, whether it's written in the shtar, a field of Kanasi, or not written in the shtar, lo yachse, you don't return it to the Benji. Shebezdin nefroim mehen, because Bezdin will go ahead and collect from it. What's the machlokes, guys? Whether the field in Kanasi is a toy cipher or not. Like Reb Meir, it's not a toy cipher. Therefore, we give it back because we're not worried. Like Reb Yehuda, no, the Chachamim, Reb Yehuda included, you will give it. You can't give it back because it's toy cipher. So it comes out now, Reisha Reb Meir, the Reisha of our Mishnah that said that a ksuba, you can't go ahead and it's got to be 200 but 100. Not like Rabbi Yehuda says 100, I don't miskabel 200, I accepted 100, or 100 and I accepted 50. So he can't be the Tana of the Mishnah. The Sefer Rabbi Yehuda and the Sefer that says that will consider the ksuba as if all achrayas is written in it is a toy sefer, and toy sefer is achrayas is a toy sefer, and we'll say that no, it's if it's written there. So you have a problem in our Mishnah. The Reisha is Reb Meir and the Sefer is the Chachamim, and we know we want to be always consistent. Now, the easiest way out is we could say this. It's according to Reb Meir, and Reb Meir makes a distinction between a shtar chayiv and a ksuba. Maybe a shtar chayiv is not toy sefer, but maybe the chitema kula Reb Meir he. And if you're going to suggest that the whole Mishnah is Reb Meir, the shiny Reb Meir, ben ksuba l'shtare, and Reb Meir is going to make a distinction between what a ksuba and shtar, meaning by ksuba he'll say it's a mistake, and therefore it's if it is written in it versus a shtar and saying no, that is Michael. When me shiny law is that does Rabbi Meir really make a chilik between a shtar chayiv and what and a ksuba? For Tanya. Chamisha goyvin min hamechurarin. There are 5 people who collect, but they only collect from metaltalin. They do not collect from what? From karka, right? Or they'll collect from fields that are mechurarin that are free. The Eluhain, Paris, ushvach Paris. Outside, you steal a field from somebody, you sell the field. The guy puts in a lot of work in the field. He has Paris growing in the field. He has a fertilized field. And he plowed the field. It cost him a lot of money. Okay. Now comes along the person that you stole it from, takes it back. You return to the Goslin. You collect the karka. You can collect from his karka the price of the field, but the other stuff, the Paris and the shevachim, you can only collect from metaltalin. You can't collect from mishubadim. Right? You can't collect from mishubadim. You can only collect from b'nei chayrin. You can collect from fields that are not indention, not dafka metaltalin, course you could, but you could also collect even from fields that are still in his bishus. Right? A davashin lakitzva, something that doesn't have a set amount that a lekeach can possibly watch out for, that would not chayiv the guy. It's good. Okay. Someone accepts upon himself to take care of his stepson, his wife's children. Right? You can collect what from bnei chayrim, but not from mishubadim. Here's what we need: the get chayiv, right? Get chayiv, the shtar chayiv, any get is a lot of get, but any shtar chayiv shein ba'achrayis. Kesuvos isha shein ba'achrayis. Now, so you see Kesuvos isha, you will not be able to collect for. You only collect mishubadim and not from bnei chayrim. Man shamalei dam achrayis lab toy sefer. Who's the Tana who says achrayis is not a toy sefer? It's not a mistake. Rabbi, the Ketani Kesuvos isha. We said Kesuvos isha, you can only collect what from? You can only collect from bnei chayrim, not mishubadim. So you see that Rabbi does not make a distinction between what? Between shtar chayiv and ksuba. So back to the original question. The ratio of our Mishnah is Rabbi, because Rabbi says you can't get by with a ksuba less than 200. The sefer that says that what if you wrote that what you're not going to pay up, we don't care because it's a mistake. So how do you figure it out? So we have two ways to figure it out. By saying Rabbi, we say Rabbi Yehuda. I can go both ways. I can say the Mishnah is either according to Rabbi or the Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yehuda. By saying Rabbi Yehuda, right? You can read Hassam, the Mishnah in Afalpi, guys. The Mishnah that said that what that in Afalpi that what 200, 100, 150 is kosvale iskabalti. She wrote to him, I accept your terms. Hacha like kosvale iskabalti. In other words, what's the kasha? The ratio of our Mishnah says you can't get less with 200. The Mishnah in Afalpi that we looked up says you could get, but why? The difference is the Mishnah in Afalpi said she accepted upon herself. Our Mishnah, she didn't accept anything. If she didn't accept anything, she's not Michael anything. Of course, she's entitled to 200. So the whole Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yehuda, and the Reish is not Rabbi Meir. Good. Now the other way out, the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. So we have to answer up the Sefer. Iba is saying Rabbi Meir. My chayiv, when it says the Mishnah that he wrote the lashon that and you can't write that my property is not mechoyev. It's not going on the property. It's going on bnei chayrim. The tani minam churarim. It's only going on the property that is not meshubed, not a lien, as versus the property that is a lien. The property that is a lien is not meshubed because it wasn't written in the ksuba. So either way, we can say the whole Mishnah is according to Rabbi, the Mishnah is according to the Chanan, according to Rabbi Yehuda. What was the kasha of Rabbi Yehuda? The Reisha, a difference. The Reisha in Afalpi is speaking where she was miskabel and she was Michael. Our Mishnah is speaking where she wasn't miskabel. Therefore, you can't get by less than 200. The Sefer, the Reisha works out according to Rabbi. The Sefer, Achrayis is tight Sefer who? So when it said Chayiv, it didn't mean it's going on what? On the Nechasim Mishubadim. It's going only on the Nechasim B'nei Chayrin, the ones that are field, that there's no liens on that. Okay, interesting Gemara. Okay, so we said, like Kosev law, okay, we said that the next in the Mishnah, if you wrote to her that if she gets captured, you will go ahead and redeem her and to come back home, and she's a kohen, not to your house, obviously, but to back to Kal Yisrael. Amar Abu Dishmol, says Abu Dishmol, guys, listen to this chiddush. Now we're all familiar that if a woman is violated, she can't live with her husband if the husband's a kohen. What about this? Amar Abu Dishmol, Eishes Yisrael Shene Nasa, the wife of Yisrael who was violated, Asur Lebaila. Not just the kohen. Eishes Yisrael says Abu Dishmuel that a woman is violated, she will be asked to return to her husband. Why? Initially, the violation took place against her will, the Seifa Baratzin, but in the end, mitoich the hana she's having, she was Baratzin. And if a woman is Baratzin, she's an adulteress and she can't live with a wife. Chidish Nifla. She's beginning to be violated. But after all, in the middle, somewhere along the line, the taiva gives in, and she's happy with this. Says Abu Dishmuel, therefore she'd be usher on her husband. It will be like a woman who's having zana against her husband. Unbelievable chumrah. Esrei Rav Abu Dishmuel, Israf, the father of Shmuel, Imtish Devoy. If you are captured, Efra Kinich Voice Vinich Li into. I will redeem you and bring you back to me as a wife. 1 second. According to Abu Dishmuel, how could you come back to me as a wife? Perhaps you consented with the bia. The assumption is that what? That there was a bia. So ishtik. So Abu Dishmuel didn't answer. So Kori Rav Alei, Abu Dishmuel, he applied Rav, who asked this question from our Mishnah, applied the following statement to following pasuk to the father Shmuel. Sorim oitzrei b'milim. The sorim, the chiefs, they would hold back their words. The kaf yosimu lepihem, and they would put a kaf. They put the kaf on their mouths. My Islam, in other words, obviously there was something to answer over here. Now I'm not. This is the way I learned Pshat in the Gemara. I learned Pshat is that Ishtik, he didn't even bother answering because there's an obvious answer. He was speaking Avu de Shmuel, where Vada, there was a violation. Our Mishnah is speaking where she was what? Captured. It's a chashash, but we don't know for sure. So B'shvuya Ekilu, and therefore by Shvuya we're Mekel. We learned Masechta, we learned the beginning of the Masechta, the Arichos, B'shvuya we're Mekel, and the Baba Yivamis, by Shvuya Mekel. You don't know for sure there was anything. So what are you asking me from Shvuya, where Vada, there was a violation? There's no tushtel. So Rab said the kasha is niskan kasha. Okay, guys. Now we know there's a part in the Torah of Anas that a woman's not forced, and she goes, where do you find such a thing? The parsha where you have a woman who's married, an Ira Marasa, and now how do you know she didn't consent? She was screaming from the beginning to the end. So since you know from the beginning to end, the Tchilasa was Boinus and Seifa was Boinus. Tchilasa was Boinus and Seifa was Boinus. And therefore she'd be permitted to a husband. But in lieu of that, according to Abu Shmuel, not. Mamish a big chumrah than anything. Upligi the Rava. And Shmuel, and the father Shmuel argues on Rava. Dama Rava, Kol Tchilasa Boinus. Anything that the beginning is Boinus, the Seif Beratzain, and the end is Beratzain. Afilu hi meres hinicholoi, even if she says, listen to this, leave him. She'll mali niskatli, if he would go ahead and ask me to have relations with him, right? I would pay. I would go ahead and pay. She'll mali niskatli, here's the money, muteris. In other words, she begins, guys, she's beginning be'oinis, he's violating her. And the end she was beratzen. And the end she's beratzen. Says Rava, she be admitted to a husband. The afilu, if she go after him and say, I'm willing to pay him to live with me, to have relations with me. Afal pikain, you would go ahead and say, what? It's permitted. It's an unbelievable chiddush. My time, what's the reason? Yetza al-basha, the Yetzirah took hold of her. Okay, the Yetzirah took hold of her. So this is an unbelievable kind of idea that the Yetzirah is so powerful that you're an honest. We believe in Yiddishkeit. Every person has bechira. Every person has bechira. So if you make a choice, it's your choice. You have bechira chavshis. So in other words, it's not, if you didn't have you didn't have avera. It's not possible to get off the hook. Our Gemara is suggesting something else. It's possible for you to be in a situation where the Yetzer Hara is so strong that you can't possibly say no. That's what we're saying now. In the beginning, she was violated, but at some point in time, the Yetzer Hara was so strong. So strong. Afal Peter shall even tell the guy afterwards to come to him. It's not considered an Avera, it's considered an Onus. And the Emes, it's a Gemara. There's such a Gemara in Brachas. Once you get a Brachas, have a Brachas right here. The Gemara in Brachas on Daf Lamed Beis. Listen to this Gemara, a very, very famous Gemara. The Gemara says over here that the Gemara is Moshe Rabbeinu was coming to claim against Klal Yisrael, Hashem, all the money that you gave out of Mitzrayim, the gold and the silver, that's what caused him to do the Cheder Egel. Like Hashem, Kaviyachol, it's your fault. Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, what did you do to them? You set them up. You set them up. So he says over here, the Gemara says the following. Amar Rabbi Barabba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mashal Adam Echad. It's brachas Daf Lamed Beis. Mashal to a person, Shahayoloi Ben. He has a son. Herchitzai, he washes him, he takes him to the bathhouse. V'sachai, and he smears him with oil. V'chilu, and he feeds him. V'chashkeyu, and he gives him to drink. V'taloloi kis al tzavaroi. He takes a wallet of money, hangs it on his neck. V'yeshiva pesach shel zaynis, and he puts the mamish at the what? The Pesach of a Zayna, of Zaynis. What could that ben do? Not sin. You set him up. What could he? In other words, in this case, it's mashma. You wouldn't have bechira in this case. He'd be set up. And be'emes, I heard this from Rabbi many years ago. I made this copy, and I've been waiting. I never broke it out. This is the first. But look at this, guys. This is very. It's a tremendous nechama, but it's very, very dangerous. Really dangerous piece to know. This is Oismem Gimel, Rav Tzaddik, Tzidkas HaTzadik. Okay, that's clear now? Good. Ad sheyev shaloi shlayechta. Sometimes it's possible that kol kach, the Yetzer Hara will take hold of a person until it's not possible for him to do the Aveira. Like it says in Brachos Lamed Beis, Mayaseh ben. What could this ben possibly do in that sin? Ubezehu nechshav oinis gomer, and this child will be considered an honest gomer. The Rachmana Patre, the Torah lets him off the hook. The Gam be'asasus hayetzer, and when you go ahead and the Yetzer Hara incites you, b'toikif otzam, with tremendous strength, she efshoy lenatzchoy, it's not possible to win. Shayich oinis, right? It's shayich and oinis. V'amashem yisbarach hesev es liboy. Hari ein chet chet klal, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not consider it a chet at all. Rak shirotz Hashem yisbarach hayabekach. That's what Hashem wanted. Vayimai shekosa b'ksubis adaf then aleph on the beis gabe tchilasai ba'onis, where this woman is being violated. The beginning is ba'onis. Afilu tzayveches lebesoif shel molei menichi hischirasai muteris lebaila. Even if she would say, "No, I'm willing to pay for him to be with me." My timer, Yetzer Albasha, the Yetzer Hara took hold of him. The person's considered an Oinis Gomer and she can go back to her husband. Even though she was what? She was Meratzain. A Yetzer Hara like this, it's not possible for a person to overcome for Oinis Gomer. And it's not considered an Oinis for the person. After Asa Isser, even though he's being over in Aveira, even the Hoya honest. The person himself, he's not able to go ahead and testify yourself on this. In other words, it's possible that a person, right, it could be in a situation where he has no control. He is out of control. However, you can't testify that fact. In other words, you don't, it's there. God knows it's there. And Lachem Eves Mishana, God will say, you know, that day you had a really bad day and you thought you did something terribly wrong. You're off the hook. But you don't know that. You don't know that. Unbelievable insight from Tzaddik in this Gemara. It's an honest Gomer. It's mamish honest Gomer. It's unbelievable insight. Pelaplayim. Blog material. Pelaplayim. Unbelievable. Tzaddik was Tzaddik from Lublin. He was one of the great Hasidic masters in the 19th century. He was going Sheba Goinim. Okay, let's go weiter. Hanikava said the Rava. We have a brisa that substantiates Rava. It says v'hilain itfasa, and she wasn't forced. Asura. Then she'd be asa to Asura. If she wasn't forced, then she'd be asa to her husband. Hanit fasa. The diak is bawad. If she was forced, muteres. And he is a miyut. There's somebody else. There's another one. Even though she's not forced muteres, she'd be muta. That's called shetichilasa ba'onis b'soifa b'ratzon. In the beginning, she was violated. In the end, she acquiesced. That would be another one that she would not be considered forced, and she'd be muta to her husband. So that's the raya to the Rava. We can have two other interpretations of this pasuk. Tanya Idach, second interpretation. V'hilain itfasa asura. If she was forced, she'd be muta. Even if she is forced, asura. That's Eishes Kayin, right? Eishes Kayin, even if she's forced, violated, should be asa. Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel says, Rabbi Yehuda what in the name of Shmuel. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, he learned it fasa asura, hanit fasa muteres. The Yeshlucha Acheres, there's another one. She'afa pish learned it fasa muteres. Bezazu says shekudesh kedushay toys. The kedushin was kedushay toys. Look at the first wide line in Rashi. Kedushay toys al tanai. A man got married on a condition. Like this guy, tonight wasn't fulfilled. In Zinsa Tachtov, if she'd be an illicit relation underneath that husband, she'd be mutter to go back to the husband. Because she's not his wife. El Panuya, she was a Panuya Ba'al Nahi. So that would be a case. The Hilay Nifasa, Machmir is in Nifasa. What's the case? Shaf Bishalay Nifasa, guys, even if she wasn't forced, Muteris. In other words, this is the opposite. Here's one where she wasn't forced, where apparently she did an Aveira, but in fact, she was Mutta. Because she was a Panuya, she wasn't an Ashes Ish. Why? Because there was a condition, and the condition that wasn't fulfilled, so it's in the Mukudeshes. Even if she has a child from the other one she was mizana with, right? She can go back to her husband. Rabbi Yehuda, right? These women who were stolen, right? So ganvi shari and legavraya, they're permitted to go back to their husbands. So Amri le Rabbana Rabbi Yehuda, v'hakam mamtinalu nama. We see them going ahead and feeding their captors. Mashma, they're feeding the captives, bringing them food that they seem to be happy with the relationship, the fact that they're there. Says no, the fact that they're taking care of them is only because of fear, but really they were violated and they're mutter to go back to their husbands. Says during battle, they're giving them the ammunition, they're giving them the girim arrows, they're passing the ammunition. That's also machmas, not a raya that they're happy in this present situation. Now, with the if they send them back to the husbands and they don't want to go, then they're usher to the husbands, because then you have a raya brura that they're happy in the situation of they're being violated and they're happy with this illicit relation. Shavuya malchus, those who are captured by the malchus for the purpose of illicit relations, they're considered shvuyin and therefore anusim. Genuve listois, but they're captured ain't a kishvuyin and they'll be usher to the husbands. So again, shvuya malchus mutter to the husbands, genuve listim usher to the husbands. Furthermore, Tanya Ibcha, we heard the opposite. That shvuyin is usher and genovim on mutter. It says when malchus and malchus lekasha, haba malchus Achashverosh. Achashverosh, he was a really big king. He was a really, really important king, and therefore, when he went ahead and lived with a girl, she knew that there's no way in the world he's taking her as the queen, and therefore she didn't agree to the relation, and therefore she's mutter to go back to her husband, right? The Malchus of Nebuchadnezzar, he was a lowlife, but he wasn't such a powerful king. The possibility existed that he would accept her as the queen, therefore the girl would agree, and therefore she'd be asked to go back to her husband. Listois lekasha, Ben Netzer again. Then you might go ahead and agree to be with him. But listois the alma where you wouldn't agree, and therefore why you go back to your husband? Ben Netzer hasam karle melech karle listois, where you're changing. You're calling Nebuchadnezzar a king, and then you're calling him a robber. In Gabi Achashverosh listim who? Gabi Achashverosh, he's a listim, and therefore why he'll be asa. Gabi listim the alma melech who. Listim alma is considered by a melech. Okay, Motzei Shabbos, you look for the time.